Hello everybody and welcome to a new episode of Cooler or Mistake. Today I am going to review a hand I played at an L200 Zoom on the tables of PokerStars.com. In this format I will review some of the biggest hands I lost and I will try to see if I made a mistake or if it was simply a cooler. So let's go with the action. We have Ace Jack off and we are on the button. We have the cutoff player who looks like a regular. He chose to open and I 3-bet. It's sometimes a 3-bet on my side and he chose to call. The flop is king 7 10. I think I'm going to c-bet my range here. He checks. I bet one off pot. Okay, I mean it's maybe a bit bigger, but I don't think it's terrible in general in this sizing. We will see with solver. And he chose to check call. The turn is a 3, pretty blank turn, and here I think I chose to bet, and I bet big, which I think is a good sizing. He check calls, the river is another 3, he checks, and here I chose to shove. Here is where things get interesting. I think up to this point the hand is pretty much standard. I don't know if I have to bluff this, probably not. But well, he calls and he ends up having 10-9. So let's see. First of all, I would like to see this hand with GTO Wizard to see if it was theoretically speaking correct. Then maybe we can try to play a bit with Deep Solver to see if with some adjustments it could make sense to play this hand like this. So here we are in GTO Wizard. I will upload the hand, just copy paste and press analyze. Looks like, yeah, so everything looks fine until the river, where it definitely doesn't like the shove. It prefers to check. And let's see how I play my range up to here. I think it can be interesting. Okay, so the cutoff, of course, doesn't have to donk bet here. There is not a board where he would ever like to donk bet, so it checks. And on the button, let's see. Yes, my hand was c-bet. Actually, my bet wasn't terrible. It split a bit, small bet and medium bet. This is like 33% and 50%. So I would say both sizing are fine. But of course, if you want to simplify in using only one size, I think the small one is the best. Anyway, it's a bet range and seems just fine to bet small. And also the field usually plays pretty poorly against small bets, so I think that would be the best choice. But again, it's not a mistake to bet a bit bigger on a board like this. But let's see what happens then. Let's see what the cutoff should do, technically speaking, on my bet. He has some raising range, which is not that small. He should raise the set, the bottom set, the mid set. He should definitely raise some top pair, good kicker. He should raise his 2 pairs, so he's raising most of his top value. He could also check raise sometimes his gut shots with good blockers like ace queen and ace jack. And sometimes it also solver chooses to raise sometimes with 10-9. Pretty aggressive raise, I would say. And he also should raise sometimes with his open-ended straight draw on the flop. Regarding the calls, he should call, of course, with any kind of pair. He can fold most of his ace high, no need to defend that. He could also fold without any problem 9s and 8s. And yeah, I think it's a pretty straightforward defense. I mean, the folds are pretty intuitive. He doesn't need to make sick folds, actually. To me, it looks like a straightforward solution. The weirdest thing in this solution to me is the raise with 10-9 sometimes, but all the rest to me seems pretty fine. Anyway, he calls and the turn is a 3. He, of course, doesn't have to lead out on this 3. He checks, and here comes my 2-barrel strategy. Of course, we go for the big bet here on the turn. When the turn is something like this, we always want to bet big when we bet. And we are pretty aggressive here. Makes sense. I mean, the board is pretty good for us in general, and it makes sense we keep being very aggressive on a card like this, which he will never have, of course, and he will never be helped from this card. We keep firing a lot. It's interesting that we keep firing also hands like jacks and queens. I don't think I would be that aggressive in game. I think I would check more often than not these hands, but good to know. We keep firing good top pairs. We can start checking the bad ones. We keep the aggression on with hands like ace-9, things like this. Also, this is pretty aggressive, but makes sense again. We have decent blockers on his continuing range, so I think it's a good one. And my ace-jack can be mixed. It can be bet, it can be check. It's not that straightforward. And yeah, the only hands we check, actually, the only hands we like to check are really weak hands. Like, I mean, mid weak hands, let's call them. Like something like the 7, ace-7, 10 jack, queen 10 also is kind of a check. And ace-10 time to time. Then all these very low value 8s, 9s, things like this. But we're very aggressive with everything else. So we really just check back the most medium hands we have, let's say, and we bet all the rest for, let's say, team value and bluffing, of course, some of this range. But yeah, so I chose to bet and he calls. Let's see how he's calling range, how his defending strategy should be to this 2-barrel. He has some raises. He should raise, basically shove the decent top pairs he had. He can do it sometimes with also queen jack, the open-ended straight draw, and he can start folding to this big bet 10 unsuited, which is a bit surprising, but okay. He folds more frequently 10 jack. I guess he blocks more of my bluffs with the jack, so he folded more. Simple as that. And yeah, I mean, he could also start folding ace-10. This looks to me like a pretty big fold. And you know, when the solver has a mixed strategy between call and fold, it means this is the bottom range basically. So ace-10 and these 10s are the bottom, and he can start folding that. I mean, all in all, the defending strategy is pretty tight. I mean, he folds a lot of pairs, and that's why I think the shove on the river with his jack was a mistake. I mean, he's folding most of the hands I wanted him to fold on the river. He's already folding them on the turn. So when he continues up to the river, his range is pretty strong, I would say. And that's why on a river 3 of diamonds, when he checks, this is our show me strategy. As we see, we check back ace-jack off, ace-queen, ace-10, these mid-value hands. Ace-jack has some showdown value, of course, sometimes we will win. And he shoves basically, well, the value, of course, kings, ace-king, decent top pairs, even weaker top pairs, actually, he likes to shove, or to bet anyway. And the bluffs we use are things like ace-9, ace-6, yeah, those kind of faces with less showdown value than ace-jack, basically. If we shove those and ace-jack, we are probably shoving too much versus our range, which is way too narrow. So I think it's fine. He also checks back with queen-jack sometimes, but shoving it, of course, is not terrible. He likes to do it. He prefers with the ace, but also queen-jack looks fine to fire here. And yeah, I mean, definitely another bluff from me. Let's see if maybe by changing some details, maybe changing his defending strategy on the turn, the shove in the river makes more sense with his jack. Let's see. To do these kind of reasonings, I think the best tool is Deep Solver. It's basically a solver which makes the solutions in cloud, basically. And I think it's good to not log things that GTO Wizard doesn't allow us to do that. So GTO Wizard is very good to get a, let's say, a quick view of what should be done. And this is if you want to study a bit deeper the spot, I think we should use them in combination. So I think the crucial part of the hand is his defending range on the turn. If he plays optimally, of course, we saw that my shove was bad. Let's see if he defends a bit more on the turn, if the shove becomes better. So let's go to the turn and let's hand lock his calls. Let's see what changes if he calls, for example, more tens in his range. And here we have the bet, and here is his strategy. Let's see what he does if he calls, for example, with 10-9 suited always, and also if he calls a bit wider with things like Queen Jack, Queen 10. Here the solution is a bit different because I put slightly different ranges, but still, let's see how does it change if he calls a bit more on the turn. Okay, I unlocked in this case his defense by calling with all his tens. So on my check, I bet, and assuming he calls with all these kind of hands, which I expect from part of the field, let's say, depending. And also added Queen Jack. I think most people will defend Queen Jack on the turn. It's close, but it was also splitted, so I don't think it will change much. So on my bet, let's see, he calls. Let's put a 3 of diamonds. Here it was 3 of diamonds, and my sizing is going to be a shove anyway. He doesn't lead out, so let's build a 3 and calculate. Okay, he checks, we shove. Well, go back actually. I made a mistake. Okay, let's he checks. Let's see actually if he had tens. Yes, this is the locked hand. So it checks, and in this case, ace jack off. It can be a shove, but it's still close. You see, it's not anymore that straightforward of a check. It can be shoved sometimes because I guess he's going to fold now. His tens, yes. So it makes much more sense to shove in this situation, but again, it will still be close. And you know, I'm assuming something which I think when you play an L200 zoom, it's always, versus a regular at least, it's always a bit of optimistic, let's say. So all in all, I would say that that hand was definitely a mistake. It was close, but it was still a mistake. I think it could make sense maybe at lower stakes to shove that hand. It's in general, I think, fine to overbluff a bit at lower stakes because people fold more. They end up to the river maybe with wider ranges and they tend to overfold a bit. So I think if the hand was played like at an L50 or 25, I think it would be a bit better. But when you play an L200 zoom, we need to be careful to do things. And yeah, I have much better hands to bluff than ace jack. And if I bluff also ace jack, I'm over bluffing, and my opponents may actually exploit me. In this case, Villain actually made an overcall, but this doesn't matter because maybe he had a read on me that I'm over bluffing, so it will be fine. Who knows? So yeah, I mean, we should look at ourselves more than our opponents. So yeah, could have done better. So that hand was definitely a mistake.